So, Michael, how long to prepare for IELTS?
What is this question? How long is needed to prepare for IELTS? If you thought his question was good English, please check out my video below on English as a time stress
Yeah.
language.
No, but seriously, we are talking about that idea of how long do you actually need
Mm.
to prepare for the IELTS?
And in this video, we will be managing your expectations and answering this question. So, hello, I'm Michael.
My name's Phil, and this is the IELTS Grind.
Welcome.
So, what do you mean? What's that phrase you use? You said managing your expectations. What's that? What does that mean?
So, managing your expectations means not having unrealistic hopes or not thinking that you can do something amazing in a short amount of time because it's impossible and your heart will get crushed.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm
this is
sorry.
what our channel is all about. This is why we call it the IELTS Grind. It's not easy. It's really tough. So you need to know the facts so you can get the best result that you can possibly get.
If someone's telling you that they can improve your band score by 1 or 2 in a month, they just want your money. Like
No.
it's crazy.
No. So let's say, because there will be some of you watching who have booked a test in about a month. You may be around, say, a band score 6, or maybe lower, maybe higher. So what could be done? What should we be focusing on? If you've only got 4 weeks until your IELTS test, what is like feasible? What's realistic?
So if you have like this crash course that you need to do, you've really just got to focus on the things that you can improve quickly.
Yeah,
So some examples of this is pronunciation.
yeah,
Pronunciation, when I'm teaching my students, that's one of the fastest things to improve because there's really simple things that you can do for 5 to 10 minutes every day that will improve it.
but that's really surprising because I think most people think that pronunciation is one of the most difficult things. Like how do you go from having your ordinary accent to sounding like us? Can you do that in a month? But you really could. You could get very close if you concentrate on the right things. So what sort of things, what sort of sounds are we talking about?
Well, I'm sure you know specifically of some sounds that you have seen students struggle with.
Yeah, yeah,
But
certainly.
from my personal experience, once students understand that English is a time stress language and that there are some sounds that are stressed and some that are unstressed,
Yeah.
once they're able to break down that aspect of the language and count syllables, it becomes a lot easier for them.
So if you haven't watched that video, so you don't have to go there right now. To give you a very clear example of this, I'm going to talk without using any stress in my sentence and I'm going to sound like a robot. You don't want to sound like that. That's not how we talk. We don't talk like robots because
There's a rhythm to English.
Yeah, it's the word stress. That's what we mean.
Mm.
So other things that you can concentrate on are particularly with your own native language. So if, for example, you speak French, if you speak Spanish, if you speak Chinese, if you speak Hungarian, or whatever it might be, coming to English, you're going to have natural difficulties with certain sounds or even certain grammatical structures. But luckily, you don't have to do any research.
People have done that already.
Yeah. So all you need to do is go into Google or Bing or DuckDuckGo, whatever you want to use, and you're going to write something like common mistakes made by Chinese speakers when they're learning English or something like this. And you will get a long list of common errors, both in pronunciation, grammar, and other things. And those are the things that you should focus on.
Yeah. And, if you are feeling really lazy and you don't want to go to Google or Bing or DuckDuckGo, please leave a comment down below of your language. And if we get enough interest, we'll make our own video expressing how to get over the most common problems that those people have.
Definitely, yeah. We've already got a video to do with Chinese speakers, which we'll link to in the description. But I've got a lot of experience with French speakers, German speakers. So if there's another language that you speak, then we would certainly do something to help you.
Yeah.
So another basic thing to do is to concentrate on what I would say is basic grammar. So it's things like learning to use the present simple, and just conjugating the third person. English is so easy. Like, we've been learning other languages, but it's so easy, like, to play. I play, you play, we play, they play, he plays. We only ask that you put an S on that one thing, but people forget it. And that can cost you a lot, not only in your writing, but also in your speaking. So that's what I mean by basic grammar rules.
And what he means by that is in French and in Spanish,
Yeah.
like every time you conjugate, it's different.
Yeah. It was so difficult going from English to a Romance language like
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Como, comes, come, comen, comemos. That's I eat, you eat, he eats, or she eats, or it eats, they eat, we eat. That's Spanish.
Well,
Thank you.
Okay. So what else? So basically we're saying if you have a month, you should spend your time concentrating on the things that you can fix quickly, and they will be pronunciation, common mistakes for people of your language learning English, and just reviewing basic structures. That could help you perhaps push up a band score,
Half.
maybe half.
Half of one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like the other thing that you need to keep in mind is this is talking about being a good student.
Yeah.
Like if you are like, oh, I got the IELTS exam soon and I'm just going to do a couple hours a day, like that's not managing your expectations well.
Nah.
Like you've got to put in a lot of time in order to see
Yeah.
these. Yeah.
Definitely. And it pays off.
Mhm.
Okay, but let's talk about perhaps if you had a little bit longer, say 6 months.
Okay. That's
3 to 6 months.
Mhm.
I think you could do a lot more in that time.
Mhm.
So if you had 6 months until you were planning to take your test, because you're going to go to university in 7 or 8 months,
Mhm.
or whatever it is, what would you say we need to concentrate on?
I believe that we'd agree here that immersion and getting yourself in the language as much as possible is what you want to do. And this isn't only going to help you with your IELTS score, it's also going to help you when you move abroad and you are in that environment.
Yeah.
So like I recommended a couple different things in previous videos, you know, watching a TV show every day if you
Yeah.
can, and re-watching them so that you can actually use aspects of language learning,
Yeah.
like exercises to improve your listening skills. Reading 20 minutes every day. These are all things that I recommend to all my students.
Definitely.
Like every single day, read for 20 minutes at your level.
Yeah.
Mm.
But it's also, we know that some of you perhaps are working, you're also studying at the same time. So how do you manage to do that and still, commit to other things? Well, what I tend to do is use my travel time, or use time that, when you're doing another task, like you're exercising in the gym or something. So I quite often, when I'm on public transport, I will be listening to some TED Talks in French, just to keep my level of French up.
He's a good student.
Yeah. So you can use that kind of dead time, the time that's not used for anything else, to just immerse yourself. Just listening to English, just getting used to the rhythm of the language, that can be enough to help you improve.
And the goal here is for you to start thinking in English.
Yes.
Thinking in your target language. Like if you have it playing in the background but you're doing something in your native tongue, that's not going to help.
Yeah.
Just like in my other video, if you're watching a Netflix TV show with subtitles in your language,
It's not useful.
it's going to help you understand the story, which will help motivation, but it's not going to be helping your English because you're thinking in your mother tongue.
Of course, you can use subtitles, but perhaps the third time of watching.
Well,
Perhaps. Just to, not the first time, perhaps.
I talk about this in another video in more depth,
Yeah.
but if you're below like a 5, I recommend first you use subtitles for your first watch.
Okay.
And then in your second watch, you use English subtitles.
Yeah.
If you're between a 6 and a 7, then you should be starting with the English subtitles and then checking by watching it again with your mother tongue subtitles. And if you're above a 7, you should be watching with no subtitles.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. Okay, so let's just talk about the different areas of the IELTS test. So there are 4 papers. If you didn't know that, that might be an issue.
We have a video about it.
So let's talk about listening, okay? So we can probably split each of these papers, these skills or these areas of studies into 2 categories. I would say skills and abilities. So what can we do to improve our listening skills? What should we be concentrating on to improve that in the short term?
So if we're talking like a month,
A
or the
month,
3 month,
yeah,
to
just
6.
in general.
Okay.
I think this is useful for everyone.
So you've got to be working on your general comprehension ability, and that comes from the first 2 watches of the Netflix, as I talked about in the other video. But then you've also, for the IELTS exam in particular, you've got to be able to listen for details, specific details that you'll be writing down. Yeah.
And the other thing is, obviously, depending on the part of the listening, the recording you're listening to in the exam, you may need to be listening for answers as you're writing answers to previous questions down. That is not a skill that we are born with. It's not. Try this, okay? With your friends, if you get a group of friends and you'll shout a different word at the same time, I can guarantee that you don't hear anyone else's word, because as you're shouting, as you're producing something, your brain switches off. It's a lot like that when you're writing. You're concentrating on what you're writing, you're not listening. But it is something you can train yourself to get better at. So.
And there are tips and tricks that help as well, like being able to recognize keywords, being able to recognize signaling words that exist in speech that let you know, oh, the answer's coming up.
Exactly, yeah. So this is something we go into a lot of detail in our videos. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel, because this is pretty much all we do. Talk about the IELTS and how to help you get the best score that you can possibly get. So talking about abilities of listening, is there anything you would add to that? Sort of apart from the skills to actually navigate the exam, what abilities do we need to concentrate on?
How about you start us off?
So I think it's basically, for listening, it's more exposure. So we've been talking about Netflix, and obviously that is quite visual. Sometimes you can understand very complex ideas just from watching something. But if you were just listening to, say, a podcast or perhaps a song, or even if you turned Netflix on and you sort of turned around and didn't watch the television or screen, the best thing to do is to be exposed to the language, to get used to the rhythms. How does English sound? And it's picking out words. Now, for me particularly, I don't speak very good Chinese. And someone was trying to teach me some basic questions like, what is your name? Where are you from? And I couldn't tell the difference between when one word started and one word ended. And that's what I mean. As you listen more and more to the language, you can see the breaks in words, and it really helps you for picking out phrases and answers, of course. So just exposing yourself to the language as often as possible when just listening, that's really going to help you. So let's talk about reading. The best skills to focus on for reading. So as you're going through a text, you want to get the gist of what you're reading. So that's the sort of global topic, the context. Then after you've got that, what would you focus on improving?
Well, the reason why you need to work on that, why that skill in particular is useful, is that it helps you recognize where the questions match to what paragraphs within the text.
Yeah, definitely.
And we'll be getting into this in other videos. But basically, you're given a list of questions that you should read before you start reading the text itself. And then after you read those and you recognize the key words and what they're asking, then you'd be skimming, really, reading very quickly, not reading every word, the whole text to get the main idea, so that you can match questions to different parts of the text. And then after that, you've got to be able to read for details, okay? Yeah. That's when you're actually looking for the key words you saw in the questions in the paragraphs.
Because there are those 3 basic reading skills, so skimming, scanning, and reading for detail. So the skimming and the scanning is just zeroing in on the keywords for the questions. And then, of course, you read one or two sentences.
Yep, just to
In
make
detail.
sure
Yeah.
that you've got that down.
Yeah.
There's actually not that much reading for comprehension in
Yeah.
the IELTS exam.
If you can walk out of that exam and tell someone what that text was about,
Your reading's pretty good.
I would say you probably have spent too long reading. Yeah. Yeah. So it's all about using these skills to zero in on the answers. But the other thing that I found that a lot of my students find difficult is they're blocked in their comprehension. They worry too much about understanding every single word. So this is something you can develop, and it's almost stopping yourself from being an obstacle. So what I mean by this is you should be able to understand certain words or phrases just from context, even if you don't know what the word is exactly. This is something you need to practice, because you can still get the right answer even if you don't know what the word means, as long as you use context from the sentence.
And surrounding sentences in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
paragraph as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very important skill. And it's actually one that you can work on by yourself,
Yeah.
which I talked about in more detail in my reading video.
Yeah.
You can improve this when you're reading for fun. Write down new words and then guess the meaning, and then go back and look in a dictionary after
Yeah.
you've guessed the meaning.
Yeah, there are so many words in French that I can now use fluently, but I have no idea how to translate them into English. It's just I learnt it from context, and it's just in my brain. So it's possible.
Reading is the single best way to improve your vocabulary.
Yeah.
It really is, especially when you start thinking in the language.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And when you start dreaming in the language, you're doing pretty well.
Unless you don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, some confusing dreams.
What are they saying to me? Help!
You're the dog in that dream. Okay, so let's talk about writing. I think for me, when it comes to writing and talking about skills for the exam, you've got to know your structures. And what I mean by that is, particularly task 2, your essay structures. You need to know what the examiner is expecting to see in each part of your essay. So introduction,
Managing expectations.
Yeah. So introduction, conclusion, body, etc. And it's quite easy to learn. We went through this. We have another video where we spoke about this, because there are only really 3 main structures you need to learn for task 2. If you don't know them, then you're just going to get a bad band score in the end, because that's what the examiner is expecting to see.
Really, like, the tips and tricks that we're teaching you for IELTS about, you know, the procedure for how to do the writing during the test, the different structures for the writing section itself, like, these are conceptual. These are easy to pick up.
Yeah.
Like, the hardest part is really improving your general English ability.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it comes down to. And even then, there are things with writing that can help make that smoother, and that's learning sentence frames. This is especially true for task 1, where if you learn the correct way to frame a sentence, you know, if you're talking about like change over time, or if you're talking about percentages, if you learn that structure and then you just plug in the differences, it's really easy.
Yeah. So just a quick review. A sentence frame, it doesn't mean you copy and paste from something you've learned and you have no idea what it means. It's just a phrase where you can use it when writing, but you probably couldn't produce it from the top of your head if you were put on the spot. But you do understand how the structure works, and all you're doing is using a structure which you can then change certain words in it, and it works for several different types of questions. That's what we mean. And Mike does a very good lesson about that, and we did this in another video.
You can check it out. Just a really quick example. 95% of viewers prefer Teacher Michael. And then here's another one. 5% of viewers prefer Philip.
Is that true?
Leave a comment down below.
No, don't start a war. Don't start a war. I prefer Mike. Yeah, it's much easier when Mike does it. Okay, so in terms of ability for writing, I would say, especially if you're taking a class and you have a teacher who's actually correcting your writing, just identify those common mistakes you make with spelling. Because if you keep spelling things in the wrong way, you make a mistake. Those are the things for you personally that you need to concentrate on. So spelling, I feel, is quite a subjective thing. You've got to, like, there are certain words that I find difficult to spell. I'm sure there's certain words that you struggle with. So spelling is something that you need to work on, because I think that is something that's quite easy to fix if you focus on it.
And collocations.
What do you mean by collocations?
Collocations are words that commonly go together. Like if I say wind, what's a word that goes with wind?
Strong?
Yep, strong wind. They naturally go together.
Yeah.
And it's the same with fast car or quick car. Which one sounds right?
Wow, fast.
Yeah, quick car, same meaning, but it's weird in English.
Yeah.
So when you learn vocabulary, learn the collocations that they go with in order to put them into your sentences in writing.
For example, if I said, I very agree with Mike, does that sound right? I really agree.
Yes.
Or absolutely agree, but very agree. That's a bad collocation. So that's the sort of thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so and the other thing I would say is to again go over the basic grammar structures, so you know how to form the past simple, you know the conjugations, you know how to form the continuous in the present, the past, the future. You know how to make the present perfect simple, the continuous, the past perfect, etc.
And these are all specific things that you can be working on to quickly see improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being more accurate with your grammar structures can really help you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's talk about speaking last of all. So as I've mentioned, you can work on common pronunciation errors for people who speak your native language, and there is a lot of research that's already been done for you on the internet. And if you just focus on those things, one of the biggest issues I had teaching French speakers, and this is common for many students, is the TH sound in words like the or think. And this is purely mechanical. But if you don't have this sound, the th or th sound in your language, you're going to say something like s or f.
I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's probably how they say it in London, but you can't do that. You have to be better than a native speaker. You have to be 100% correct. You can't make those mistakes that we make because it's our local dialect. So things like that. Concentrate on the common pronunciation errors that people of your native language make. Anything you would add there?
Just keep talking.
Yeah, it's confidence, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is why I tell my students fluency and pronunciation are usually the easiest ones to improve.
Yeah.
The vocab and grammar, learning sentence frames and collocations will help with that, but it's slow to improve those.
Yeah.
Like, it takes time.
So if 6 months' time, if you're going to take your test in 6 months' time, that's a lot of time you can improve your speaking, because if you get over that fear of making mistakes, then you know you're going to improve very quickly. Because remember, if you're making mistakes, there are different mistakes. There are stupid mistakes and there are intelligent mistakes. Stupid mistakes are things like forgetting the S on plurals or using the instead of a. Those are things that you should know and you can fix. But there are some intelligent mistakes where you're pushing the language that you know. And those are the ones that help you learn.
Very true.
Okay.
So good luck, guys. Remember, give yourself a study schedule or something to make sure that you're doing something every single day. Good students are the ones that are able to get the scores that they want on the IELTS exam. We've given you a number of things to specifically be working on that are, this is across our experience teaching many, many students.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of problems that they usually have that are fixable. But keep going. You can do it.
Definitely.
And good luck.
Good luck. And we will see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you found this useful and give us a like. And if you have any questions, leave us a comment. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Bye-bye.